Welcome to Red Light, Green Light, the podcast where seasoned leaders and top-tier executives in science, tech, pharma, finance, and innovation open up and get real with me and with you. You'll hear personal stories from key moments of their career arcs and how they've struggled and succeeded when it comes to moving audiences from the red light of risk to the green light of go. I'm Cindy Skalicky, storytelling strategist and author of the best-selling book, Red Light, Green Light, How Top Leaders Present with Polish, Get Buy-in, and Become More Influential. On this podcast, you'll hear from an exceptional invite-only lineup of leaders who've been in the room and at the table when stakes were high, decisions were hard, and their stories had to land. This is where expert minds share stories that shape the future. What's more, you'll walk away with tips you can try immediately to drive the vision of innovation with your team. Hi, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to another episode of Red Light, Green Light. I am your host, Cindy Skalicky, and every week we bring to you a leader in science, technology, or innovation who is willing to share some of their storyline with us, especially as it concerns messaging and strategic storytelling. I'm really excited about my guest today, and I'm going to read for all of you a couple quick lines of intro, and we'll dive in because he's a scientific storyteller. So hang on. Here we go. Raj Indupuri is the co-founder of eClinical Solutions, which he helped launch in 2012. He started his career back in the late 90s building clinical databases when trial data was still collected on paper, if you guys remember this, and literally shipped via FedEx before any cloud stuff was available, right? He's had a front row seat over the last few decades to the evolution from manual processes to AI-driven infrastructure. And he's trying to solve big problems in pharma today with eClinical Solutions. Raj, welcome to the show. I'm so looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you for having me here. And I love the name of your podcast. That's really cool.
Thank you. Yes, Red Light, Green Light, for those who are just new to us, it's is a nod to the book I wrote this past summer, and it's really around the traffic light of where we all find ourselves as speakers, trying to get our audiences to look at what we bring to them and move them from the red light of risk to the green light of go. Like, how do we get our audiences to say yes, to get buy-in faster? And we'll talk a little about red lights and green lights you have hit today, Raj, and we'll hopefully educate a few folks along the way as we move forward. Tell us a little about, some of the biggest lily pads of your journey so far in where you are now, and what do you share usually for your intro?
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm looking forward to this conversation today. And
Yeah.
as you said in your intro, I was just really fortunate. I came to US in 97 from India,
Hmm.
and my first job happened to be at a biotech company. And
Okay.
yeah, it was right now it's back then it was Serono, now it's Merck Serono. They got acquired.
Okay.
And
Okay.
again, so I had my background was I'm an engineer, but had
Okay.
worked on databases. Again,
Hmm.
I didn't plan, and
Hmm.
as you mentioned in the intro, so back then I was working as part of a team building clinical trial databases where we had an army of data entry people entering data manually, and we were
Okay.
collecting data at sites or
Yep.
hospitals, and then this data has been shipped by a FedEx, like by FedEx or other mail, right? So that's how I started my
Yep.
career. Very fortunate,
Okay.
say, uh, to be part of an industry where purpose is built in, right? So as
Yes.
sciences,
Totally. Purpose is built into the industry.
And so whatever we do, we make an impact, right? And we don't
Yes,
realize this day in and day out. So at eClinical
right.
Solutions, our mission has been to make clinical research easy and intelligent so that we can
Mhm.
bring medicines to patients faster. And
Yes.
I believe it's true for every company in this space. And
Mhm.
that uh, that really excites me. And
Mhm.
also from the technology point of view, right? I've been really fortunate to be in an for the last 3 decades to witness or have an
Mhm.
opportunity to work with the evolutions that have happened, right? So early
Mhm.
late 90s with
Yep.
Web 1.0, right? So that's where you mentioned in the intro. So I was part of a team where we moved this paper process into electronic processes. Then
Yes. Yes.
then we had the mobile revolution or the right where
Mhm.
we were collecting data beyond the web interface. So I was so
Yep.
again that's another big step, right? Where we were collecting data
Yes.
from patients, and then the cloud. Without the cloud, we wouldn't exist here. So when we started this company along with my other two partners, right, all we needed
Right.
actually is an account or a credit card to the AWS
Mhm.
cloud. You know what I mean?
Right.
So before
Yes.
to build a tech company, you got to raise millions and millions of dollars. That totally
Yes.
changed with cloud, and
Yes.
I feel like damn lucky that
Yes.
had the opportunity to do that. And now the last few years, or I would say AI has been we've been talking about this for the last
Sure.
5 years a lot, but the
Sure.
last 12 to 18 months or 2 years,
Mhm.
it's
Yes.
is something that
Mind-blowing.
I don't believe
Mhm.
I don't believe
Mhm.
anyone have
Mhm.
witnessed this, or I don't think we
Yeah.
can predict completely like
Yeah.
what's going to happen, and also the impact it's having on our lives, on the industry, and everything.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
and lead a company in this era, I take this very seriously. I feel really
Mhm.
about it, and also I'm excited in
Yeah.
terms of where we're headed.
Well, it's a great push-pull because you're so right, Raj. There's a lot around AI that can be exciting, that is exciting. There's some that's a little scary. I have my own thoughts around like using AI to draft speaking points, for example. And I'm like, no, no, no. I'm kind of becoming more passionate about helping people see the tripwire of that for their credibility, right? But with data and all that you're mining, it's an incredible advantage, and that's what AI ought to help us do, is do things faster and better and more thoroughly with the kinds of businesses that you're running and the impact that you seek. And I think for people in our kind of generation of leaders who have seen like paper pencil to mobile to, cloud-based into AI, like it's cool. It's not something that has really been present with this speed
Yeah.
and enormous change as you might say from recent generations. Question that I want to poke a hole in for us today, Raj, for some of our listeners, they really might not understand clinical trials at all.
Mm,
And I cut my teeth on this around 2000 when I was working at a PR firm in DC. It was a science only PR firm, and I was assigned to a client that was a contract research organization.
mm,
And contract research organization is a CRO, and I was responsible for trying to help get trade publications to cover the news that was going on at that CRO and the kind of clinical trials they were responsible for pushing through and helping with drug discovery, right? So, can you do a real basic kind of explanation of what clinical trials um, are for and where you sit on that kind of maybe value chain, I guess?
yeah, no, definitely. So before you bring a medicine to the market or to patients, you got to do research, and you
Hmm.
got to confirm, or you got to work with regulatory authorities to ensure that
Hmm.
the medicine or the therapy is safe and effective, right?
Hmm.
And and for that to happen, you have to do clinical trials, and and the different phases. You start with phase
Mhm.
one,
Yep.
and where again this has evolved a bit in terms of the definitions, but
Mhm.
phase one typically would be on healthy volunteers, trying to make sure that it's safe, and then
Okay.
based on
Healthy
the results of
volunteers.
that you go to phase two, and then so in phase two you might be looking at uh, the dose, right, around the
Okay.
safety aspect
Yep.
of it, or other again. Now trials are so different, right? There's so many different,
Mhm.
uh, and then
Right.
you go to phase three where you actually uh, expand, right,
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
to a bigger population, right?
Mhm.
More
Okay.
patients, more countries, more sites, right?
Mhm.
You work along this process. You work with regulatory bodies like FDA,
Sure.
and make sure that you share the results. And as based on the results, as you prove the medicine is safe and effective, you
Yep.
progress, and then it gets approved, and then it gets to
Right.
the market. So where we sit is as part of these trials, right? You collect a lot
Yep.
of, and
Okay.
what has happened over the, I would say, the last 2 decades or so, the amount of data you're collecting
Yes.
continue to increase, right? So not only the amount of data, the way you're collecting also has changed, right? So if you
Yeah.
go to
Oh,
clinical,
okay.
you can get data from devices, right? You can get from apps. You have biomarkers. You have
Okay.
lab, right? You have different different source,
Mhm.
different
Yeah.
varieties,
Okay, that
and
makes sense.
quite a bit. And for so as you collect all this data, right? Like I mentioned, you got to work with FDA. You have to submit this data, right, to ensure it's safe and effective. And you got to clean this data, and you have to
Right.
do analysis, right? So where
Yep.
we fit in, we provide the technology, data infrastructure, and analytics stack for the entire
Okay.
value, right?
Okay.
So as companies collect this data from different sources, we help them bring together from
Okay.
all these different sources for a trial or a
Mm.
cross trial with a pipeline, so that different stakeholders within clinical development, it could be data managers looking for
Okay.
cleaning the data, looking for
Mhm.
quality signals. It could be medical
Mhm.
monitors, clinical scientists, biostatisticians, right? Doing looking for safety signals or doing
Mhm.
analysis. It
Mhm.
could be for transforming this data and standardizing to submit to FDA. So they're different personas. So what
Mhm.
is we provide this data infrastructure analytics, or
Yep.
we are now calling this as a clinical data intelligence platform, right?
Yep.
So that
Yep.
we are bringing the data together, adding the intelligence layer, working with different
Okay.
stakeholders,
Yep.
and in the end to accelerate research and bring medicines to patients faster.
Amazing. Hey, listeners, super quick station break question for you. Have you ordered your copy of my new best selling book, Red Light, Green Light? Check it out. Grab your copy today at onpoint-communications.com/book. And now back to the show. It sounds a little like you've dumped all the shapes and colors of Legos on the floor, and you've got to figure out how you're going to build which thing, and there's endless possibilities, and you need to figure out which tower to build for which stakeholder audience. Is
Yeah.
that like somewhat similar to what you just described?
And I think that's actually an interesting way to look at it, right? So you have
Yeah.
all this raw data that you're
Yeah.
collecting. We think like for life sciences companies, especially doing research,
Yeah.
we look at it as the most valuable asset.
Yes.
They spend millions and millions of dollars, especially for phase three trials. It could be hundreds of millions of dollars, right?
Okay.
If you look at the trial from phase one to submit, or when it gets approved, right? So there
Yep.
is data out there. Uh, it could cost anywhere. It depends on how you look at it. It could cost up to $4 billion, right? Prove,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay. Not
for
chump change.
yeah.
Right.
So again, it depends on what you're trying to solve, right? This
Sure.
again it also depends on how you look at it. So my point here is we spend, or companies spend, enormous amount of money
Yeah.
into
Right.
collecting this data. And to
Mhm.
your point, it's all raw data, and there are so many different
Mhm.
us. Again, like I said, you have data managers. Their focus is quality
Mhm.
and
Yep.
ensuring it's clean. You have medical
Yep.
monitors, they look for signals. You have biostatisticians, they
Okay.
analyze
Okay.
data, right? You have programmers
Yep.
trying to standardize so that it makes it easier for FDA submission, right? So
Right.
your safety uh, teams looking for the safety signals, right? So to your
Mhm.
point, like these are all Legos, and you
Yeah,
build it
right.
or you build it, right? So I think that's a nice way to think of it, right? You have
Yeah,
all
right.
data.
I mean,
We
we
have
all
this,
know what Legos are, so we
right?
can, like,
So
use
we
that
have this compute
as a
layer. Yeah, we have
Yep.
this on top of the data. We have this mapping and compute layer. So in
Yeah.
your analogy, you build the blocks and assemble together to serve insights for all these
Yep.
stakeholders so they can
Right.
make decisions faster. And what's
Yes,
happening
that's
now
the
with the
game.
AI? Yeah.
Mm.
And the last few months or the last 2 years have been super exciting, right?
Mhm.
Adding a
Mhm.
defense layer. And we are making it incredibly easy for all these different stakeholders within clinical development to get insights faster, right? And
Okay.
automate
That's great.
their workflows. There's so many different workflows in this value chain.
Sure.
Takes a lot of
Sure.
effort, and there's a
Yes.
huge opportunity to bring massive efficiencies using it.
Mhm.
Translate.
Yes. That's so exciting. It sounds like there's great momentum right now, great, I mean, with clinical trials and bringing new drugs to market and trying to solve for huge problems like cancer or, whatever the disease is, speed is of the most important the
Yeah.
most important factor, right? So I am curious, Raj, as we think about the kinds of data that you are able to help your clients mine for, your partner agencies and whoever is kind of using eClinical solutions. When I think about what you're talking about, let's talk about like the red light and the green light of how you communicate and how scientists can, fall into traps, for example, which would be a red light. Like, what are some of the danger zones of messaging when it comes to scientific storytelling? And you can share like maybe a personal thought or else kind of industry wide what you see and observe. And then what are some of the things you've noticed that are those green light moments of like, this really works when a person can, you know, fill in the blank? Like, where do you see the storytelling and messaging challenges and successful tactics? Can you share the red lights for us a little bit first?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say so. Ours is a technology lens, right? So I'm more of a technologist rather than a
Yep.
science
Yep.
lens. So science,
Okay. Got it. That's fair.
it's a
Hmm.
different lens. So
Yep.
to your point, I think it. So one to begin with, we communicate to our customers or partners in terms
Yep.
of the art of possibility, because unlike before, right, where it was very difficult to bring all this data together and also
Hmm.
do analysis, uh, uh, it, they had to depend on
Hmm.
programmers or other teams, right?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
so what we encourage our customers or what we communicate a lot, and or in your language, the green light from our perspective is the ability to do this analysis or to gain insights faster on their,
Right.
right? So to,
Okay.
yeah, so that you're not depending on technical folks or programmers. If you are a medical
Okay.
doctor, if you are a clinical scientist, right?
Hmm.
The idea here is we provide so many different ways in terms of how they can connect the dots and they can tell better stories
Okay.
when they talk to their
Oh,
the
love
state.
that.
Yeah. So I think that's
Okay.
something that we push and we encourage, right? So one of our principles when we built out our platform is the ability to do different tasks within this value chain from the self-service perspective, right? So that they don't
Okay.
a lot of code and they don't need to be very technically savvy. So they should be able to do that.
Okay. So it's very intuitive. You try to make it very easy for them to
Yes.
pull the
Yeah.
data.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
now we are actually being challenged, right? So now we live in a world where you use ChatGPT or Gemini, right?
Mhm.
You ask
Yeah.
questions, you want answers, right? So now,
Yes. Yes.
now actually we are making that shift now, okay?
Okay.
Where within our platform, we are adding that intelligence layer where you can ask
Oh,
questions, right?
okay.
Then it will just
Great.
respond and it will give you signals, or it
Yeah.
will give you, or it will tell you the story. So, for example, we have capabilities within our platform where there are these visualizations or advanced
Oh,
graphs.
cool. Oh,
So
cool.
you
Hmm.
can click a button, right? We call
Hmm.
it an age explain agent, and then it
Okay.
may gives you the insights. It will tell you the story of the chart and visual instead of
Oh,
you
nice.
trying to figure that out, right? And then you can have
Okay.
conversation and get recommendations to take action or to take decisions. So
Yes. Great.
that's I was super excited when
That
my
is exciting, Raj. Yeah. Yeah.
prior
That's
to
very
all the
exciting.
advancements that happened over the last 12 months, this would have taken enormous effort and significant time. And I don't even know it was possible. But now, because of agents and how technology has evolved, uh, what's now possible, right? Uh, it's just I can't even explain. And then what
It's even
was not
better. Yeah.
possible like just 12 months back is more than possible now. So from the
Yes.
light point of view, when it comes to again
Hmm.
now I'm focusing on AI. So you got to be really careful in terms of how we use this. I think you brought this up when you're talking about your speaking point,
Hmm.
right? Or speaker.
Hmm. Yeah.
So human in the
Yes.
loop is extremely important. So what we do is when we provide these kind of capabilities, we built in the guardrails, right? In terms of
Yes. Oh, good.
sure that there is governance, there is security, right? And also before they act or take a decision, we force the human in the loop. So I would say the red light here would be when you're consuming or when you're accessing these tools, right? Make sure that
Hmm.
human in the loop is there, and also make sure
Yep.
that whatever stack or whatever technology you're using, right? So it's grounded with these guardrails that is built in on the intelligence layer.
Yes.
That so that
Yes.
it's not only you're not getting or dealing with hallucinations or
Hmm.
to take any mistakes because you're talking about clinical research data and that impacts
Right.
patient lives.
Yes. I love that. And I'm thinking too, Raj, that, I'm imagining having this data set, having this agent that can help you, the explain agent, is that what it's called?
Yes, yes, yes.
Um, what an awesome, yeah, like it's like, give me the story of this data, and then it will spit out the story of the data. The next step, the red light in that situation is for a leader or a person who receives that information to just pick it up and deliver it to the board of directors without their own head and heart inside that message to make sense of it in their own words. The green light movement there is to say, okay, this is the story. I'm going to take it over here, ponder it, give it my own not spin but take, attach it to something that is meaningful to me so that when I deliver it to the board or the customer, it is really of me, from me, and through me. And that's the danger I see. That's the red light of AI being too much in our speaking, where it can make us feel robotic and phony. And that's a real danger to our credibility in ways we may not yet see, but like I see it around the corner. Like that's what's coming. We're going to have empty, falling flat presenters. We do not want that, especially when life is on the line and things are at stake that you're working on, Raj. Right.
You're absolutely right.
So,
I think a lot of people ask me, right? Even my team asks in terms of the impact on jobs,
yeah,
impact on goals, right? I do
yeah,
think there's no denial that every role, every job, from the CEO to any role, right, whether it's tech,
yeah.
scientific, is going to be impacted. But to your point, I think you draw a great analogy here, right?
Hmm.
So it's that domain expertise, right? So
Hmm.
case the explain
Right.
agent. it gave you some recommendations, it interpreted the data and told you a
Yeah.
story, right? What you bring to the
Yeah.
table is to make sure that you confirm that and you add your domain expertise layer on top. It already uses domain expertise,
Yes.
right? So that's
Yes.
the key.
Yes.
And the people and the individuals who know or who can
Yeah.
use these tools the right way
Mhm.
are ones who are going to
Yes.
win, and they're going to win so big,
Yes.
right? Compared to,
Yes.
I think that's the key here. And
Yes. They
while
will win so big.
well,
Mhm. Mhm.
you're absolutely right. So I use, for example, Chat GPT for
Sure.
communications, right? Writing an email to
Sure.
my team.
Email totally.
So, but I, so to your point, I think again, you are a storyteller. So I feel like for a good storytelling, right? There are three things that are important from my lens. One, it needs to
Yeah,
be
let's hear it.
authentic. It needs to be
Authentic.
authentic, right?
Yes. Yes.
Two, it needs to have clarity in terms of what you're
Yes.
communicating. And the third
Yes.
third thing is you need to also communicate why, right?
Yes.
Why is so
Yes.
important, right? So if you are telling something, you got to argument with the why. If you're asking something, you got to argument with,
Mhm.
right? So I use the tools, but the amount of time let's see if I'm sending a note to a company, right?
Yeah.
It'll take like a few minutes to get some kind of a draft,
Yeah.
but it definitely helps. But I end up spending enormous amount of time to make sure that it's authentic, it's free,
Yes. Right.
it is
Right.
clarity, and also there's that why embedded, so that
Yes.
it connects with the people. So you're absolutely right. I think in this case, I am using the tool, but I'm just not dumping that into my email and hitting
Right.
it
Oh,
sends.
right. I think that when it comes to writing, and I'm really thinking a lot about this right now. I'm going to write something, hopefully that we can, kind of get out and publish it. But when you're writing an email or even an executive summary of something,
Yeah,
like 80/20, depending on the relationship of the email recipient, like
yeah.
you can use AI like 70 to 80% and then give it your personal thing for 20 to 30%. Not so with speaking. Not so.
Yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
we do 80% of our script writing for a big, high stakes presentation,
Mm,
we need to flip that. It needs to be more like 30% AI use, and only in getting a skeleton of maybe the outline and some of the data points. And then, in my professional opinion, like you got to bring all you listeners, like bring your story, your padding around the message you want to say, because that authenticity, we see right through it, my friends, right? I've been to some events lately where it's like, oh, that does not sound like something that person would have written. And I'm like, I smell
yeah,
AI inauthenticity. So this is exactly where we need to have like eyes wide open, right?
yeah.
And you're a great conversation partner about this right now, Raj, because you have built a company on data analytics and how to mine that, and also there's a need to tell those stories to your customers and the other stakeholders as well. So, fantastic. I love it. Hey, listeners, super quick station break question for you. Have you ordered your copy of my new best-selling book, Red Light, Green Light? Check it out. Grab your copy today at onpoint-communications.com/book. And now back to the show. Raj, as we close up, what is something you're excited about in the next 12 months? What's happening that's kind of lighting your fire around industry trends? What's going on at eClinical? What's happening that's got you excited before we wrap up?
I think the answer shouldn't be surprising. It's all around AI. Genuinely super
Yeah.
excited, right? So we've been in
Yeah.
business for 13 years, right? So we
Hmm.
actually
Hmm.
built these analytics and workflows. They are deterministic, right? In other words, they're
Hmm.
rules based
Yep.
because you
Right.
know what's
Correct.
going to happen when you click something or
Right.
when you start a workflow. And now the ability to add this intelligence layer and transform
Yes.
workflows, automate workflows, bring efficiencies at scale, right? Serve
Yes.
these stories instantaneously, right? Have agents
Hmm.
or assistants help with your
Yes.
task. The
Yes.
abilities are significant. So
Yes.
you already chalked some of the red lights in your words,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
also what keeps me up is in terms of how disruptive this is. And as a
Mhm.
company, if we
Mhm.
don't keep up, right, if we don't push for
Yeah.
innovation, we are at risk
Right.
of destroying value, right? It
Yes. If you're not
happened
growing, you're dying.
about Blockbuster versus Netflix. When you think about BlackBerry versus,
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
want to be a Blockbuster,
Yes. Great
right?
analogies. Yes. We don't
Right.
want to be caught in the fray.
So
Yeah.
that's what keeps me up. And a lot of
Yes.
people ask me again. This is something that you read as well in terms of how people are. Again, there's a lot of experts beyond me,
Yeah.
right? Uh, People are claiming or I would say uh, talking about how enterprise SaaS
Yep.
industry is going to be gone because everyone is going to vibe code and then companies are going to build their own.
Mm. Mhm.
I Again, obviously, I'll be biased owning or
Yep.
leading an
Sure.
enterprise software company. I do not think that is going to happen, right? But again, this
Mhm.
again,
Right.
to your point, what excites us is the ability to add this
Yeah.
intelligence layer, and we have to evolve at speed. But people miss the point
Yep.
that the domain expertise, right, is
Mhm.
important. For example, in our case, we're
Mhm.
talking about life science industry and clinical trial data. There is so much
Mhm.
that's built in terms of our ability
Mhm.
in the regulatory compliance, right? Our ability
Mhm.
to ensure that the governance has been built in, right? The data quality,
Mhm.
security, right?
Mhm.
These
Mhm.
have been built into our software and our workflows. You cannot just wipe
Right.
code that, and you cannot just eliminate the domain knowledge that has been embedded into our software over a decade and say that
Yeah.
okay, a few programmers can then just use some tools and recreate what we have, right? In fact, I see the opposite, where companies like us, right, where we actually have where we actually digitize the workflows, right, or provided these
Yeah.
analytics limits,
Right.
right? Now, if we can
Right.
actually augment with agents and intelligence layer, right, where we are
Right.
pairing this deterministic software that we already have with
Yep.
intelligence and human in the loop, we are going to
Yep.
win and we want to win big. So it
I love it.
in from our perspective, especially with life sciences and verticals where you're dealing with mission critical data, right? So
Mhm.
to be a combination of deterministic workflows or software that's
Yes.
very mature, augmented with intelligence and agents, where for different personas, the work gets minimized, right? The repetitive work, and then their assistants, like as agents, helping expedite and bring efficiencies, right? This
Yeah.
combination is what going to win. And we feel like we are very well positioned to do that.
That's
And
yeah.
we are excited for
Incredible.
this decade and what's
That
ahead of us.
for sure. And I think what you said, what the word that floated to my head was foundation. Like where instead of like jettisoning code or other things that are being kind of replaced or advanced, what is the role of the other thing that we don't maybe want to get rid of but find a place for underneath the stack or the what you're building functionally. I don't know. I'm not a coder. I don't play one on TV, but like that was the first thought
Yeah, yeah.
that I
No, I
came
agree.
up with as far as like where should it go now if we're doing these other things and how can we keep the risk low as we advance, but keep our sights on those green light moments of growth and advance in step with the life sciences founders, researchers, PhDs who are counting on us to help clean their data and get it actionable for their. That's a long road. I know I've helped so many founders with life science backgrounds on all the. I mean, it is not for the faint of heart, and they've already gotten a PhD and mastered their science in the industry anyway. So these are people who are like, you know, they're already advanced in their careers and now they want to bring a life sciences um, innovation
Yeah.
to the world. It's an army of an effort. So I think what you're bringing, what you have brought, what you're building is just incredibly valuable for life sciences companies. And that's where I want to ask, like, as our last question, like, how do people find you? Where should they go when they hear this and say, like, I need to talk to Raj about what we're working on?
Yeah, no, thank you, thank you. So the company
Yeah.
again, eClinical Solutions, eclinicalsolve.com, and
Yep.
I'm on LinkedIn, and
Yep.
yeah, so I think you can find us on our website, and
Yeah. Well,
thank you for
yeah,
this
for sure.
opportunity. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Thank you, Raj. I knew this would be a great conversation that we could take in many ways. And I learned a lot from talking with you. I hope we brought a lot to our listeners with educating them on clinical trials, talking through the great work you're doing and, and what's happening as we look at AI and how it's impacting not just you, but your industry of clinical trials, data collection, management, and orientation. So, thank you for being here with me today, Raj. This was fantastic.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, listeners, for being here with me today on Red Light, Green Light. Please make sure that you hit like and share and send this episode to someone who might have interest in learning about it and hearing this conversation. We will be back again next week with a new guest, a new storyline to unpack, and new value that you can walk away with right then. Until then, please head out, find yourself an audience of stakeholders you would like to move from the red light of risk to the green light of go, and get out there and nail it. Have a great day, everybody. Bye bye.